What a variety of whiteness we have here. We got the dude, we got Pete. It's like a rainbow of beige. Yeah, I'm trying to. I guess I thank you for what you said about West Wing. I think yeah, we're really trying to stay out of The Handmaid's Tale. If there's anything that the last 8 years has taught us, it's that we don't just get a democracy. You got to make it every damn day. I think Kamala is showing us all a future worth fighting for.
Actor Bradley Whitford of The West Wing was among the speakers on the White Dudes for Harris Zoom call just last night. 190,000 people joined that call, and it ended up raising over $4 million. It's just the latest in a string of Zoom calls that started organically after a Zoom call for black women for Harris blew up to 44,000 viewers last week. Then black men did one, then white women, then LGBTQ people, then Latinas, and many others, including the White Dudes last night. And the beauty of it all is that these groups are self-organizing. This is literally from the ground up. White men, like other groups, saying they are legitimately excited by Kamala Harris's candidacy and want to do their part to help her win, which I think is awesome that we've turned Zoom, which is something we used to hate, into an organizing activity. Brad Bauman is the former executive director of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he was one of the organizers of the White Dudes for Harris call. Alex Seitz-Wald is a senior political reporter for NBC News, who reported on the call. They both join me now. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Look, Brad, I'll start with you. How did this call come together? And I say I'm envious. This seems so chill. I'm not a white guy, but it seemed like a lot of fun. There was a lot of just good energy. How did this come together?
Well, we would have loved to have had you because all are welcome in our calls. You know, I think it must have been Wednesday or Thursday. Ross Morales Roquetto, the lead organizer, dear friend of mine, one of the co-founders of Run for Something, called me, called a couple of his other friends, and was talking about how inspired he was by all of the other calls that had taken place prior over the past week and a half. And he asked us a simple question. Am I nuts for thinking we might be able to do one ourselves? And we kind of said, no, you're not. There's something to this. And more importantly, there's something that needs to be said and something that we all need to start talking about together as white men. And so we got to organizing. On Friday morning after the White Women's Call, we started to reach out to our networks. I put out a text message to about 100 of my friends. A bunch of different influencers online started to tweet out the brilliant invite that we had. And we were kind of just off to the races. It was wild.
Alex, I talked to some consultant friends about this call, about a lot of these calls, but in particular the sort of white men call. And what they pointed out to me is how amazing it is that these are sort of self-organized events, right? The Harris campaign didn't pay for this. The Harris campaign didn't have a consultant reach out to random white guys and say, hey, put this together. What does this say about the groundswell of support that Harris has been able to get in just a week, that you see people self-organizing in this way and then giving money?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe, but Joe Biden stepped aside just 10 days ago. And I think that took the lid off this pot of energy that, was just not there for Democrats. People were dispassionate. They were resigned to Trump winning. They were tuning out the news. And then all of a sudden, he steps aside, Kamala Harris steps up, and there's just been this explosion of energy with nowhere for it to really go. The campaign is still getting up and running. They just changed over their @Joe Biden to @Kamala Harris email addresses last night, I believe. So there's just so much energy. It has to go somewhere. It's gone to these Zoom calls. It kind of reminds me of those early days of the so-called resistance in Donald Trump's first term, or all the way back to 2008 when Barack Obama was running. I have not seen this level of energy on the left for a long time. The challenge will be for the Harris campaign to turn that energy into door knocks and phone calls and rally attendance, and then ultimately votes for white men and for all kinds of voters.
Brad, I want to ask you about sort of the theme here. When I, talk to people who are on the Black women's call, it was excitement. It's like, we have to support Harris. On the Black men's call, we have to protect Kamala Harris. On the white women's call, it's we can't let this happen again. We screwed up in 2020, and we screwed up in 2016. We can't have this happen now. What would you say was the theme of the White Dudes for Harris call? What was the overall theme that white men were sharing with each other in a safe space about what they wanted to do in this campaign season?
I think that there were a couple of threads. The first was that there are a lot of white guys who are just sick and tired of being told that they need to be scared all the time, and that some political movement like MAGA speaks for them or has all the answers for them or can kind of keep them, locked up in a box where, they can just contort truth and tell us a bunch of weird stuff. And so I think we started to hear and started to see a lot of folks who were willing to break through that filter bubble for the first time and willing to say, you know what, I'm kind of tired of their shtick. I'm kind of tired of this Donald Trump guy. I think there's a second one too, which is that there is so much excitement around Vice President Harris. And we're really seeing an opportunity here for a transformational figure to enter the White House. And after so many years of us all feeling so sick and tired, to have that level of hope that Alex was just talking about. I've been around this a long time too, right? And honestly, I haven't seen excitement like this since 2008. It's true. And I think that there's something so special about what's happening with white guys that we might be in a position to start really having an honest conversation with one another about it.
Alex, I want to ask you this very quickly because I think this is a good point jumping off what Brad said. What is the message that these Zooms sends to white guys who weren't on the call, right? Because Brad's making a good point. It's like, hey, white guys have been told, hey, you got to fear this group. You got to fear this group. Women are taking things from you. And this was a bunch of regular guys saying, I'm not afraid of any of that. I want decent health care and safe schools. What does the existence of this Zoom say to that other white guy out there who didn't get on the call, but it's like, oh, man, 190 other guys were there. I missed out.
Yeah, I think it's almost about raising a kind of class consciousness or a group consciousness, because this is not a group that has been thought of as any kind of coherent demographic group. It's not a group that Democrats have tried to reach. They've actually been very uncomfortable with the idea of appealing directly to white voters. But there are a lot of us, a second largest demographic group in the country after white women, and geographically dispersed across every battleground state, every swing state. So if you can get these guys to think of themselves as, political actors, not just regular everyday Americans, if you can move even a percentage point, a half a percentage point in a couple of these places, the numbers are so big that, Trump is still going to win white men. Let's be clear. Like, Kamala Harris is not going to win white men. But if you can cut that margin, I think it can make a big difference.
Alex Seitz-Wald and Brad Bowman, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight on All In.